Welcome back to KJ Paranormal. I'm Jackson. This week I've got another little special video for you. We're going to be taking a look at 5 of the most ghostly shipwrecks in Australia. So without further ado, let's jump into this video and have a look.
Number 5. A Taiwanese vessel called the High Aim 6 left the port of Luqiao in South Taiwan on the 31st of October 2002 and was found drifting in Australian waters on January the 8th, 2003 without a crew. She was found 80 nautical miles east of Rowley Shores, which is a group of 3 atolls south of the Timor Sea, about 260 kilometres west of Broome. High Aim had plenty of fuel aboard, provisions, and no sign of a struggle, and the vessel's hold contained rotting fish. The Indonesian police eventually tracked down the only surviving member in the province of North Sulawesi. Apparently members of the crew had killed the skipper and the engineer on December the 8th and returned back to their homeland. High Aim 6 was towed to Broome and sat on the beach for around 12 months, and in October 2004 it was destroyed by heavy machinery and transported for local landfill. In 2002, another Taiwanese vessel, the Harasheng 6, was found drifting by the Indonesian Navy. 3 of the crew were later found and confessed to the murders of the 2 others aboard. Number 4. Referred to as the Ghost Yacht is the 9.8 metre catamaran which was found drifting 88 nautical miles off of the northeast coast of Australia on April the 20th, 2007. The CAS-2 departed from Airlie Beach on April 15th, 2007 with 3 crew headed for Townsville in Queensland. On April the 18th, a helicopter spotted the yacht adrift in the vicinity of the Barrier Reef, the world's largest coral reef system composed of over 2,900 individual reefs, 900 islands, spanning over 2,300 kilometres. The boarding officials reported the vessel was in serviceable condition, with food and plates set on the table, a laptop was set up and turned on, and the engines were still running. All of the vessel's emergency systems, including radios and GPSs, were still functional. The crew included Des Batten, who was the owner, and Peter and James Turnstead, who had planned to sail to the top end of Australia to Perth in WA, where they lived. The EPIRB and all the life jackets were still there, but the 3 men were gone. 1 sail was shredded, and it's still a mystery today what actually happened to the people. Number 3. Hand-built in the mid-1950s and famous for her Antarctic voyages and circumnavigations of the globe is the 19-metre steel schooner, the Patnella. She was considered to be virtually unsinkable, constructed of steel with 4 watertight bulkheads. The Patnella was also fitted out with the latest safety navigational equipment which did not falter during her 3 decades of sailing in some of the roughest seas in the world. At 12:57 on the 8th of November, Ken Jones radioed in their position of 10 nautical miles east of Botany Bay, stating that he had run out of fuel and hoisted the sails and they were tacking to the east at about 80 degrees and may need assistance in the morning to get back into Sydney Harbour. The weather was overcast with a light northeast wind and a moderate swell, which made it easy for sailing. At 1:58, Ken Jones radioed again asking for a weather report and directions to the coastal town of Moria, located on the south coast of New South Wales, not far from where the Patnella was. At 2:05, the OTC received a 3rd call from Jones, but the transmission was crackled and faded out, and Jones asked, 300 kilometres south? Is it? South? This was the last transmission from the Patnella. It was thought that the Patnella was hijacked, had a collision with a bulk carrier, or simply just capsized and sunk, until 6 months later when a lifebuoy was found off the coast of Terrangal, north of Sydney. That gave hope, but nothing was ever found. Dozens of sightings of Australia's ghost ship have been sighted since its disappearance, and then again in March of 1989 by retired New South Wales police officer Ted McCarthy. If anybody has any information on this ghost ship, the Patnella, please ring Crime Stoppers. Number 2. Launched in Baltimore on the 11th of October 1943 and originally called the George M. Shriver, was the US States Liberty ship the Viggo Hanston. She was a 7,033-ton freighter, 441 foot long, with 2 oil-filled boilers, 3-cylinder triple expansion steam engine capable of producing 2,500 horsepower at a cruising speed of 11 knots or 20 kilometers per hour. During its construction, several workers were unintentionally trapped in the riveted-up compartments and found the next day suffocating to their deaths. The Viggo Hanston served as a troop ship and transported cargo in convoys, sometimes being attacked by German aircraft and U-boats. In August 1944, a murder-suicide took place at Naples when Canadian radio operator Maud Steen was shot in her cabin, and then the guy actually killed himself. In 1953, the vessel was sold to a Greek-owned shipping company and named the vessel Alkimos, meaning strong, and also a Greek god who was called Alkimos. On March 20th, 1963, the vessel was on a voyage from Jakarta to Bunbury when she struck a reef off of Beagle Islands. After 2 months of repairs at Fremantle Harbour, and after she had actually caught fire, the Alkimos was under tow by a rig called the Pacific. When the tow line gave way, she was driven ashore. After being refloated again on February 14th, the Alkimos was at anchor until May the 2nd, when the anchor gave way again and she ended up on the Eglington Rocks in Yanchep in 1964. All salvage attempts ended with mishaps, breakdowns and even death. The skull of a long-distance swimmer, Herbert Voigt, who vanished around Rottnest Island, was also found near the Alkimos. There have been reports of barking dogs, apparitions, lights flickering, weird smells, cold spots, and these are just a few that make up some of the ghost stories of the cursed-ship Alkimos. Number 1. Built in Amsterdam in 1628 as the flagship of one of 3 annual fleets of company ships for the VOC is the 3-masted 149-foot Batavia. At 600 tons and a cruising speed of 5 knots, the Batavia was also equipped with 22 cast-iron cannons, 6 bronze, and 2 composite cannons, with the capacity to hold up to 341 passengers and a vast wealth in jewels and 12 chests containing 250,000 guilders, or $30 million in today's standards. On the 28th of October in 1628, Batavia departed the Dutch part of Texel in a fleet of 8 ships with 100 soldiers, sailors, officers, and private travellers bound for Batavia, or Jakarta, Indonesia as it was known. Strong winds, lack of knowledge of longitude, and nighttime conditions landed the vessel on Morning Reef in a group of islands called the Hoopman of Brollos, a Portuguese term meaning open your eyes, spiked obstructions, on the 4th of June 1629. The Hoopman of Brollos, or Abrolhos Islands, is a group of 122 individual islands and coral reefs in the Indian Ocean approximately 80 kilometres west of Geraldton in Western Australia. It is one of the world's most important breeding sites for birds and the centre of the West Australian rock lobster fishery, where fishermen spend 4 months of the year fishing the season and living in shacks on the remote island. During the voyage, some died of scurvy and old age, but once wrecked on the reef, about 41 people died in an effort to reach nearby islands for refuge. The commander of the Batavia, Francisco Pelsart, sailed to Jakarta to get help, leaving the senior VOC officer Geronimus Cornelius in charge, unaware of his plot for mutiny. Cornelius tricked the Dutch soldier Webby Hayes into searching for water on another nearby island, resulting in an orchestrated massacre of 125 men, women, children and infants over the course of a couple of weeks. In October of 1629, the last and deadliest battle was interrupted by the return of Pelsart on the rescue vessel Sardam, which was only 36 metres in length, to find only 122 remaining passengers alive. Pelsart set punishment for those responsible for the looting of the VOC property and private valuables, various acts of treason and treachery, the rape of women, and the murder of 122 survivors. On the 2nd of October, the accused were taken to Seal Island with having a hand cut off before being hung, but in the case of Cornelius, he had both hands cut off, then hung. 2 men were abandoned on the mainland near Hutt River, while some of the lesser offenders were taken back to Jakarta and flogged, keelhauled, and dropped from the yardarm, which meant the victims' hands were tied behind their back, lead weights attached to their feet or ankles, and a rope was tied to the wrists and then thrown off the yardarm, falling 50 feet, or normally resulting in dislocated shoulders and broken wrists and ankles. Ghosts of those murdered are still said to linger on Beacon Island, and many still remain buried in the shallow graves today, although 14 people have been excavated, marking one of the worst massacres in Australia's history.
Alrighty, there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Look, if you like the content that I'm putting up, just give it a like, a comment. You can subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a fair bit. I'll keep pushing these videos out for you guys, and I muchly appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one. Stay spooky, guys. See you later.